Please make sure.
Chairman, we're ready.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for 2013-2019. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller. Here. Ms. Irvine. Here. Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Here.
Reverend Patterson. Here. Mr. Silva.
Here.
Mr. Youngblood.
Here.
Chairman Peterson.
Here.
We have a quorum with all 7 members of the board present, sir.
Thanks, Greg. The next agenda item is a report from the Citizen Advisory Board. Good morning, Alicia.
Chairman Peterson, CTA board members, and President Carter. Chairman Lester Barkley and Vice Chairman Vanessa Hall were unable to attend today's meeting, so I've been asked to present this report on behalf of the Citizens Advisory Board. My name is Alicia Berg, and I'm a member of that board. As a lifelong professional planner and former commissioner of the city's Department of Planning and Development under Mayor Richard M. Daley, I recognize how critical a well-funded and well-functioning mass transit agency is to our region, our city, and our communities. Like you, Chairman Peterson, I work for a major institution now, the University of Chicago, which is reliant on public transportation to get our employees, including myself, to their jobs, our students to their classes, and our patients to their appointments. Our Hyde Park campus and medical complex is active 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and public transportation, Metra, PACE, and the CTA is critical to our operations. This morning, the Citizens Advisory Board heard a presentation from key CTA staff on CTA's winter weather preparations. The presentation outlined the months of preparation that management expended to update their winter planning efforts. It's a credit to their planning that the system kept running in this historic bitter cold spell. And it was gratifying to hear that those employees required to work outside in those conditions experienced no significant injuries or ill effects. We also heard about the warming buses that were deployed for the homeless, and that was also something that the committee was very interested in and supportive of. Hopefully, the worst of the cold is over, and you can start preparing for the next set of challenges that will surely come your way. In conclusion, I thank you for this opportunity to serve on the Citizens Advisory Board, and please don't hesitate to call on us as issues arise. Thank you.
Alicia, on behalf of the board, let me just first of all thank you for, one, agreeing to serve. I think we've known each other at least 15, I'm going to date us, but at least 10 years, I know. Again, I want to thank you for presenting to the board. And I would also say, too, if there are issues that come up, I know from time to time the Citizen Advisory Board comes before the Transit Board, but if there are issues that come up even prior to us having an opportunity to get together, please don't hesitate to reach out to the board and share any thoughts that you might have regarding things that we could do better to serve our passengers. But again, thank you for being here this morning.
We'll do that. Thank you very much.
Our next order of business is commendations. President Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As president of the CTA, my top priority is that all of our employees work each day to provide dependable, top-quality service to our riders. It is an important responsibility that requires CTA employees to work hard, work smart, and always put our customers first. One way to ensure we are putting customers first is by upgrading our infrastructure, rehabilitating rail stations, upgrading or purchasing new trains and buses, offering new technology that helps riders better plan their trips, and more. Another way we put customers first is by offering them quality bus and rail service provided by dedicated, responsible, and hardworking employees that make our riders feel welcome each day. Today, I have the honor of recognizing a group of outstanding employees who deliver excellent customer service to our riders day in and day out. Joining us today are the bus operators, rail customer service assistants, and a rapid transit operator who have received the highest number of commendations from our customers in 2018. This means that each of these employees have delivered such stellar service that CTA customers have repeatedly contacted our customer service department to let us know how much their great work is appreciated. And I should point out that these are just the commendations that we're made aware of. I would suspect that each one of these employees gets the commendations in an unofficial manner each and every day. All of you being recognized today are the first point of contact for customers. In addition to operating buses, trains, and running our stations, you're also CTA's ambassadors, creating a powerful first impression of our agency. The way you treat our customers, answer their questions, and help them get to their destinations directly affects how they feel about our organization and the impacts the public perception of the CTA. I am proud to have you outstanding employees with us here today, and I want to acknowledge your efforts. I know it's not always easy to be cheerful and polite, especially with some of our more challenging customers. So I want you to know your efforts are both acknowledged and appreciated. I should tell you that I got a chance to meet with them this morning before the board meeting, and it does not surprise me that these would be the most highly commended employees within CTA. If you get a chance to talk to them, or you get a chance to see them on our system, it is truly a reality that they both enjoy their jobs, they enjoy interacting with our customers, and it's reflective in the way that they were enjoying themselves this morning. So with that, let me introduce the employees who we want to recognize today. Please stand when your name is called, and for each employee we recognize today, I'll be indicating their work location and years of service. First is Alexa McCracklin at North Park Garage, who has 4 years of service with CTA. Next is Rolando Nieves, who is at Forest Glen Garage and has 20 years of service as of June. Next is Michael Toomey, who is at Forest Glen Garage and has 15 years of service. These bus operators have the awesome responsibility of navigating a large vehicle through challenging traffic and weather conditions. In addition to being bus operators, these employees are also often impromptu tour guides, traffic reporters, and more, all while treating our customers with grace, patience, and kindness. And as I have said on more than one occasion, I could never do their job as well as they do. Thank you once again for your exceptional customer service, both to CTA and our customers. Now let's hear it for these bus operators. You're welcome. I would also like to congratulate the following 3 remarkable rail operations employees who have consistently gone above and beyond their duties to provide our customers with excellent service. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. And please stand when your name is called. First, Erik Bashir. Erik is a customer assistant at Kimball Terminal with 1 year's worth of service with CTA. I should also point out that Erik is quite the marketer for himself and has created a nice little handout of his skills and qualifications as a flagman, and is very interested in moving up within CTA, and he and I had a very good conversation about that this morning. Lachelle Evans-Beard is a customer assistant at Howard Terminal who will have 6 years worth of service next month. And Cleo Lofton, who is an RTO, rapid transit operator out of the Action 63rd Terminal, who has been with us for 33 years. And hopefully for much longer. Okay, all right. We at the CTA are proud of the way each of you help ensure our riders get where they need to go by offering travel information, assisting with Ventura questions, and simply greeting customers with a smile and a kind word. By providing outstanding customer service each day, each of you is an impressive reflection of CTA's values and mission. So now let's give them all a round of applause for their service. In addition to the recognition that they are receiving today, Ms. McCracken, Mr. Toomey, and Mr. Nieves, and Mr. Lofton will also be honored by the CTA on Monday, March 18th, as part of the National Transit Driver Appreciation Day. On behalf of Chairman Peterson, the board, and myself, as well as the entire CTA family, I want to once again thank you for your service, your hard work, and your commitment to CTA. At this time, I would like to invite all of you up to join myself and the board for a commemorative photo. You want us all in the...
Yeah, right in the middle.
Back here.
Between the flags.
Come on back. Congratulations again. See everybody put the pen on. That's good. Good. Impressive.
Mr. President, in the center phase, and tall people in the back.
Are we balanced out here?
Just a couple more steps that way, right between the flags. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you want to get in? Yeah, there we go. And yeah, if you want to move over just a little bit, there we go. I can see everyone's face. All right, big smiles, everyone. 1 second, please. All right, now I need bigger smiles. Thank you very much.
How you doing? Well, we did too, though.
Thanks for riding the CTA.
The next order of business will be to recess the board meeting in order to conduct the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. May I have a motion to recess?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller. Yes. Ms. Irvine.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes votes, and we are now recessed in order to start Finance, Audit, and Budget.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I would like to call to order the March 13, 2019
meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Reverend Miller. Here. Ms. Irvine. Here. Ms. Alvarez-Aliz.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Youngblood.
Here.
Reverend Patterson. Here. Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum with we have a quorum of the committee with 7 members present. Hold on one second. Hey, Mr. Silva, you could just try to speak a little bit more loudly into the microphone so our court reporter could hear you. That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of February 13, 2019. May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine.
Abstain.
Ms. Alvarez-Aliz.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson. Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
That motion to approve the minutes passed with 6 yes votes and 1 abstention by Mr. Irvine.
Our next order of business is the review of the finance report. Presenter Jeremy, good morning.
I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be giving an overview to the results for the month of January. With regard to revenues, we see fare box totals coming in about $2.7 million lower than budgeted. Again, this is primarily due to the 2-day event of the polar vortex. Those 2 days alone resulted in about a 2.5 million of the 2.7 total. So while we have budgeted, on the revenue and on the expense side, assuming there's some cyclicality, that type of historic event, does not get factored in. So, you see the wild fluctuation for those 2 particular days come to affect the overall fare box total there to the 2.5 of the total $2.7 million negative variance. However, on passes, we continue to see good progress of people migrating from pay-per-use over to the 7 and 30-day passes. So we continue to see progress there. So overall, about 2.2 million negative variance when you balance those 2 line items. The reduced fare subsidy comes in about $1.2 million less than budgeted. Again, we budget based on the full allotment of the $28 million of reduced fare subsidy that we have historically received from the state. However, that has been cut in half since 2015. We continue to make pleas to the state for full reinstatement of that line item. But again, that has been cut for a while. That, again, just to highlight the fact that we give out over $100 million of free and reduced fare rides, so it's important for us to get the historic $28 million from the state on that particular line item. Non-fare box totals are coming in slightly better than expected on the budget, about $500,000 positive variance for that particular line item. So overall, total revenues, we see approximately $3 million negative to budget at $2.9 million variance to budget. Again, 2.5 of that was due to the 2-day event of the polar vortex. So, we continue to keep an eye as we move forward through the coming months of, subsequent events. In February, we'll have some impact as we move forward. But again, that was kind of a historic 2-day period in the month of January. Average fare is up 4 cents due to the calculation of revenue over ridership. So as ridership dropped, you saw a spike up there on average fare. And then free rides is down about 400,000 for the month. This is both due to enforcement and also ridership, particularly during that 2-day period. With regard to expenses, you see some negative variance kind of across the lines in total. But again, because we budget based on longer-term averages, you don't see kind of some of the wild fluctuations that you may have otherwise anticipated for the month of January. On labor, we see that we're unfavorable. Again, we had additional overtime due to the second half of the month, but particularly during the polar vortex period, due to ensuring that the cars and buses were ready to go out on the lines, that we were sleet scraping and continuing to maintain the rail lines during that extreme cold period. Materials, again, due to snow and ice mitigation, there was additional purchases of certain materials. Fuel, however, countered some of these negative trends as oil has continued to drop. We continue to benefit from the unhedged portion of our fuel purchases, so we saw a positive favorability there on that particular line item to about $250,000. Power and injuries and damages came in effectively at budget. Security services is slightly above budget. Some of that is due to timing. And then other expenses, we see some slight favorability there. Totaling all of those up, we're about $100,000 below budgeted expectations for the month of January. We again, I think that this is due to the fact that we conservatively try to budget our expenses, factoring in some cyclicality in the weather. But overall, that leaves us about $3 million net negative for the month of January. Again, we will continue to work out of that deficit throughout the year with the help of the different departments on ensuring that we continue to maintain our expense levels and try to squeeze out some savings there, as well as hope to see a rebound on the revenue side of the house to help compensate for some of this shortfall in January. With regard
Go ahead.
with regard to the three commodities that we purchase, fuel, power, and natural gas, we see that we are fully locked in for where we expect to be for the calendar year 2019. We continue to make selective purchases, particularly for 2021 on fuel as oil prices continue to drop. They're not quite down to the low lows that we've seen recently, so we'll continue to hold until we see some price relaxation on oil, and then go ahead and make the final purchases for 2021, in particular on fuel, as well as natural gas.
Any questions?
Not so much a question, but a statement. I think to really put it in perspective, I was looking at the scoreboard for 2019, and to just think on, I think it was Wednesday, we only had 200,000 riders for the entire day. I mean, you think about, we average about 1.5 million rides per day, and on that one day, only 200,000. And then the following day, we saw a drop of over 900,000 riders on the system. I mean, it really just kind of put it in perspective. I don't know over the year if you're ever able to make up that kind of a number, because when you start to look at it, that's almost 2 million rides that you've got to make up over the next, and I don't know what the numbers are looking like in February, but we've had a tough February as well. And now we're halfway almost into March. So again, and I say all of that to say, any indication from the state that they might go back and restore the reduced fare subsidy, or is that something you think we're just going to have to live with the rest of the year?
Currently, there's no indication from the state based on indications from the governor's office on their proposed budgets, that would be reinstated. We continue to make that case, how important it is to us to receive the full allotment for the reasons that I outlined, that we give out about $100 million of free and reduced fare rides over the course of the year. So at best, we're only getting 28 cents on the dollar. And then that's been cut in half since 2015. So we continue to make that case, and I think it's a strong case, as we continue to have those discussions with, the state officials.
Let me, if I may, put a finer point on the comment that Jeremy just made. We are not in a sustainable financial model. That's the bottom line. And we are strongly emphasizing that reality down in Springfield. In fact, we will be in Springfield later this week testifying as to our capital needs, but also as to our operating needs, to continue to reinforce that with the legislature. Obviously, the governor has submitted his proposal that maintains the status quo as relates to the subsidy cuts that we've been experiencing. We hope to be able to convince the legislature that they should rethink that position as it relates to our financial needs, and I should point out that RTA, Metro, and PACE are also making the same pitch. As a region, if we're going to continue to support public transit, we have to subsidize it at a satisfactory level, and right now, they're not doing it on either the operating side or on the capital side. And it will have an impact if it does not get fixed.
Yeah, and the reason I was looking at what's happening with the state, I mean, if you go back to 2018, pretty much, for the most part, every month, the deficit was due to the fact of what we were experiencing at the federal level and what we were experiencing at the state level, neither of which we could do anything about. This is the first time I know in almost 10 years that we've had this kind of drop in ridership. And so just out of the gate with a $3 million deficit, it's really going to be up to management in terms of belt tightening to really, because ridership has been one thing where, you know, we've had ups and downs and it's been dropping a little bit. But again, to overcome 2 million rides over the next few months with the federal cuts remaining for a whole fiscal year, the governor's budget hasn't shown any relief, and I'm glad we continue to make that case. But $3 million out of the gate with ridership is something that we're probably going to have to look internally from a management standpoint and try to figure out, you know, what we can do to try to overcome that deficit. And this is just January, like I said. I know February is tough, and we're just into the about midway of March. So.
And I want to add, it's during the polar vortex, we didn't cut service during that time. So we were providing full complement of service. So the people that did brave the cold weather didn't have to wait too long for buses and trains, which was essentially a public service.
That's correct. And I should point out, yes, we did provide normal service. We also, just to further amplify that, it also made sense for us to do that because of the impact that the weather was having on our equipment. And if I had shut down the equipment and the lines, starting it up again would have been even more difficult. So in our interest in the long run, it was to our benefit to continue to operate the service, because when the polar vortex ended, we then had to we would have to get to normal operations and would have had to try to get that equipment out on the street again. And I can pretty much guarantee you we would have had challenges doing that had we not kept using it.
And our costs were increased, right? I mean, we had more costs on labor side just to continue.
Yes.
To do that, so.
Yeah. And I agree with the chairman's comments that the way we have been managing this reality over the past couple of years has been through efficiencies that we've generated on the cost side of our house. That becomes more of a challenge when we see the type of revenue drop that we experienced in January. But we are committed to, once again, belt tightening, finding ways to do things more efficient, as well as looking for other opportunities for revenue generation to supplant the revenue that we lost, both of which we'll be pursuing through the rest of the year to try to basically deal with the deficit that we're facing right now.
So, Jeremy, you had mentioned earlier that you kind of budgeted for incidents like that in terms of weather. How do you foresee the second and third quarters compared from last year? Do you think we can probably make a dent into that deficit? Because I think we talked about the third quarter being our heaviest when kids go back to school and people are coming back from vacation and all that. So do you see that kind of putting that dent into that gap that we just created, not on our behalf, but from the weather standpoint?
Yeah, as you indicate, the third quarter is our highest ridership period. But as we work through the year, even starting this weekend with the St. Patrick's Day festivities throughout the city, we continue to make strong indications with our social media platform, with advertising on the system, about using the system to enjoy those festivities. As the weather warms up, I think that you'll see a reciprocal increase in steadying out of the ridership numbers. but it is a hole that you start out in January, and with the cuts that we continue to receive from the state, it makes this hard to kind of balance against those, external forces that affect, the weather, affect the ridership here in Chicago. So, we don't have, again, that buffer that we would have otherwise had if it wasn't for the cuts on state funding. So again, that's why it's so important for us to continue to provide, or to receive the state funding so that we can continue to provide, some of the public service that we do in those extremely cold periods, because, we're the backbone of the transportation system here in Chicago. So we were able to still deliver people to their work because the city was not shut down in total. So again, it's a critical, essential service of the city that we're providing, and we need to receive that funding, that reciprocal funding as well.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremy. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events for 2019. Mike Wynn.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Mike Gwynn, Director of Revenue and Fair Systems. Presented for your consideration is a co-promotional agreement with the City of Chicago's Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, otherwise known as DCASE. This is the 27th year that CTA has partnered with DCASE, or its predecessor, the Mayor's Office of Special Events. DCASE organizes the key large events such as Taste of Chicago, Jazz Fest, Blues Fest, Gospel Fest, the farmers markets, Chicago's farmers markets, and the Air and Water Show. CTA is providing $897,700 in unsold advertising on buses and trains in exchange for sponsorship recognition at the various DCASE events. We are going to continue with the large format car cards for a few of them beyond just the normal car cards to help draw attention to some of the main events. And we will be receiving dedicated space on the event's website, really elevating CTA's profile. The promotion of this co-promotion will allow CTA to reach out to a larger audience, including visitors and residents who might not currently use the system, and encourage use of CTA to access these wonderful events, which is a great way to get in and out and avoid the traffic. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mike, I know we can't do it now, but I think going forward, it would be interesting to be able to report back to the board. For example, every year we enter into this co-promotion relationship with all of the festivals. I'm curious as to the attendance of these festivals. For example, if you go back and take a look at 2016, let's just say the last 3 to 4 years. So if you go back to 2015, 2016, look at those days, see what ridership was for us. Then if you come back the following year, look and see. I'm just curious, more people attending. Again, right now, we're just, it puts us out there. We're getting riders. We've been doing this. But I'm curious to kind of look at data.
Sure.
To see over the last 3 to 4 years, what has the ridership been every year for us? Maybe a lot of folks aren't coming to Taste of Chicago like they used to, or some of the events. I would just be curious to look at the numbers and see over the last 4 years how the percentages have either gone up or flattened out.
Sure.
Okay.
We can get the attendance information from the city and compare it to the ridership. We can also put that in a package for you, some of the social media
I'm really
as
more
well that we do.
interested in
push.
a ridership, because we can capture ridership by day.
Mhm.
And because it's only a weekend or 3 days, I'm more interested in the percentage, our ridership during those days that the festivals are taking place on an annual basis, just to see if there's an uptick or downtick in ridership.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We can get that for you.
So I'm
I
curious-
would make
Oh,
just
go ahead.
one caveat to that narrow focus. Because obviously, as a co-promotional opportunity, it's not just about whether we get ridership at the event, as much as we're keeping CTA's name out there and branding out there for purposes of ridership in general. So while we'll definitely pull together the information you're asking for and see if we can make those types of direct connections, that's not the sole purpose for why we do it. It gives us another opportunity to get CTA's name out there at an event that we know there are going to be a lot of people at, as a way to promote CTA in general, in addition to just at the event itself.
Well, that was going to be actually my question. So, and you might know this or might not, and I'd love to get that information if we could. With regards to where they promote, I mean, I know digitally they do a lot of promotion, right? But are they promoting at the airports? Are we a part of that? Is our logo there somewhere? At the buses that come in? I mean, I know locally and statewide, there's a lot of buses that come in from Peoria, for example, or Champaign or whatever. Are we part of that promotion? And where are we incorporated as part of that promotion so that you're right, because it's not just at the festival as we're being branded outside as a city, you know, it would be great for CTA to definitely be a part of that. So you may or may not know some of
We can
those.
compile that. We have a presence on the event websites. You know, we're pretty visible at the event.
Right.
But beyond just that basic information, we can get some more specific
Because I
information
think
for you.
that's critical, right?
Absolutely.
So that we could maximize our visibility and the brand awareness, so.
And we are doing more advertising at the airport, and that not just through the agreements that Mike presents to us, but also directly with the Department of Aviation, talking with the commissioner there about how we can better promote CTA. And I know just anecdotally from coming into the airport that I now see the digital signs that they have in the terminals that are talking about taking CTA, using CTA as an alternative to the airport as opposed to the other options that are available. And I have been pushing for and have been fairly aggressive about wanting us to have a bigger footprint, particularly with the tourists, both at Midway and at O'Hara, because of the unique position that CTA has to provide service directly to both airports from downtown. So I'm hopeful that that's going to have some impact as well.
And for me, the ridership was to get at the marketing. Because for me, it's like sometimes you have to hit the reset button and get folks in the room and say, guess what? Maybe we should look at other ways of marketing our partnership and getting the word out there. That's why I was looking at the ridership to say, guess what? If they've been doing it this way and we've seen ridership kind of flatten out, well, maybe looking at other vehicles or avenues by which to continue to brand us, we might, because when do we ever get in the room with, and I don't know, with the city and all of the other partners, but when do we all get in the room as a collective group and say, look, this is what we're doing last year. We're doing something different this year. Because again, with millennials, we didn't have Uber, 5 years ago. You didn't have Lyft 5 years ago. So again, just being creative, thinking out of the box, and not just having the city or whoever we partner with doing the same kind of advertisement, same kind of thing. When for us, if we look at the numbers, we can go back and say, look, they've been flat the last 3 years. Maybe what we want to do to continue to get our name out there, as Dorval said, even getting beyond the ridership of just refreshing how, we get marketed to the broader audience.
Absolutely. We'll take that.
And with that, Lenny, what about our schools, our college universities, since they are definitely into the technology? Are we advertising, the Champagne, those students that has to come back and forth, when they come, information?
We will work with DCASE to get involved. We also have the ability to reach out to the local schools, which can be a good win-win because it can drive ridership on us and drive attendance at the events too.
I think the schools are quite honestly a tremendous opportunity for us because, one, we have the UPass program, which basically gives them the ability to ride CTA as part of their student activity fees, and it's also a group that, to the extent that we educate them and get them used to riding transit, it will pay benefits when they graduate from college and start to take on jobs and utilize CTA going forward.
And I know we talked about this last year with regard, and we're going off a little bit on DCASE, but maybe a good idea for DCASE, with regards to all the interns that come into the city in the summer. And I know we talked about reaching out to some of the corporations and letting them know what we have available. I'm wondering if DCASE is also reaching out and letting them all know about the festivals and throwing CTA in there, where they can, right? Putting our brand in there again. know we discussed it last year.
Yes, and that is something that is a program that we're putting into place right now where we can start to put together packages of transit opportunities and market directly to companies for their employees, for their interns, as part of internship programs and other things that we believe are also opportunities for us to generate revenue and tap into markets that may not traditionally be aware of or promote CTA as part of what they do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Our final order of business is the review of 7 purchase and sales award recommendations. Ellen McCormick, Juan Pablo. We're going to start with contract number A1. Any questions? Let's move to B1 through B3. No? Let's move to C1. Move to F1. G1.
The only comment that I would have on G1, and I did get some of the feedback, I saw some of the feedback from some of the other board members, and that is just going forward with DB participation. I know this is a sole source, but entering into sole sources where there's never going to be any opportunity for DB participation, I think we should always be mindful of that. It's one thing to come in and have a sole source with a vendor who provides a service that we need, but I think it should always be with the intent that down the road we should be saying to them or writing something within the procurement language that says, at the end of the day, we would like to see, especially for a contract of this value, some kind of DB participation. I know there's written in here that they're going to try to get there, but for this large contract, not to have DB participation. And if there's something that's going to happen down the road, it would be great to bring it back before the board. That would be my only comment regarding this contract.
First of all, I echo your concern about this contract and the DB participation. And one of the things that we have done, which is new for this type of a contract, and quite honestly might be new for any type of IT contract, is we've taken the task order-based approach to a section of this contract that we believe will have DB opportunities attached to it. And I think that we should plan, and we will plan to report back to the board as we execute those tasks, what we're getting in terms of DB participation, because what we tried to do here is isolate out the portion of the contract where we know there are subcontracting opportunities, and obviously that could be more of a challenge with these types of contracts than they might be with typical construction contracts or other things that we deal with. But it is certainly my intent, and we have certainly conveyed this back to Trapeze, that we're going to maximize the opportunities where we can to try to generate DB participations beyond what, as far as I know, we see anywhere else in the industry. So I've sort of laid down the hammer here that I want to basically be the leader in terms of finding ways to get DB participation out of these contracts, recognizing that trying to get the commitment from them up front is difficult, but holding them accountable as the contract moves forward to make sure we find those opportunities and take advantage of them.
Yeah, and I'll echo that because as I shared, I had the same concerns, and that we take a look at opportunities, but it is just very important for us that takes place, and we want to be aware of what's going on with that. I think especially in light is that some of these companies are buying out other companies, and so it's making it more and more difficult. And so if you're buying out other companies, then in the other companies, there might be some opportunities there. The thing is for them to get creative, because the other portion of this, apart from the DBE portion and participation of that, is that when they're sole source, then we don't have an opportunity. We're stuck with them, and if we need service, they can say, well, you know what, you're going to have to wait. And so service isn't as good to us. I'm not saying that's the case here, but that can happen. And so it puts us in a detrimental position. We don't want to be in that position.
No, I agree. And, you know, we're faced with a challenge around this particular type of work because we tend to be a niche market, and it's become a boutique type of operation. We're not big enough to really bring in some of the other bigger players into the market, but we're big enough for smaller players, relatively smaller, to basically dominate it. And that's kind of the challenge that we're facing right now, not to mention just the investments that we have to make to actually utilize this type of technology. Clearly, you know, the performance of the contract is something that I want us to focus on very closely. I have experienced with other contracts that CTA's had where when you get locked in, to your point, you start to see a deterioration in the performance and responsiveness that we would anticipate for work that would be performed under it. In this particular case, as you know, the second largest transit system in the country, and the fact that it's a very niche market that really fits only within the transit space, it's not in their interest to necessarily have us start to complain about the way they're performing. Because while there aren't a lot of competitors in this market, there's still a couple that I know would love to get our business. We would, you know, what it would take for us to convert over to someone else, though, would obviously be a major investment on our part, and they know that. So we certainly, I feel, based on the pricing that we got, which is very favorable for us, they have shown a willingness as part of the negotiations to be responsive to us and to understand what our expectations are, and we intend to hold them accountable to that, and would certainly be prepared to and will report back to the board as this contract moves forward, so that you have a sense of how this issue is playing out.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 7 contracts on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Since there is no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a second? Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes. Reverend Miller. Yes. Mr. Irvine. Yes. Ms. Alvarez-Alias.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson. Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion to approve the omnibus passes with 7 yes votes.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor say aye.
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 We're adjourned.
We're adjourned. And Terry, I think we're ready to go straight back into the board.
Okay. So now may I have a motion to reconvene the regular board meeting of March 13, 2019?
So moved.
Motion and seconded. Reverend Miller. Ms. Irvine. Ms. Alvarez-Alias.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yeah.
Reverend Patterson. Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The motion to reconvene passes with 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is the approval of the February 13th, 2019 board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed. Any comments? Hearing none, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 13, 2019.
And seconded. Reverend Miller. Ms. Irvine. Ms. Alvarez-Alias.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson. Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The motion's approved with 6 yes votes, and Mr. Irvine abstained.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is public comment.
Yes, we have one public comment speaker today, Mr. Andy Sturgis. If you would like to step up, sir, please address the board, and if you could please limit you have something to hand out, or you could just sit down right there. And there should be a microphone right in front of you. The green light should be on. And if you try to limit your talk to 3 minutes or so, we would appreciate it, sir. Go right ahead and address the board. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Thanks for letting me speak to you all today. I'll try to get this done quickly in 3 minutes. I'm going to make my points by bringing up multiple incidents to paint a picture of what it's like to ride on the south side of the red line. There was a man yelling for 5 minutes about how he was going to attack people. Then I got off the train, waited for a bus, and there was another man who was crying and yelling about how he was going to attack people. Then I got on the bus, and there was a guy calmly speaking into his cell phone with no sign of mental illness, talking about how he was going to attack people. That's fairly common for me to come across people who are announcing to crowds of people that they're going to attack people. Then I asked one guy if he could stop yelling. I said it nicely. I said if he could stop speaking to everyone until I could get off at the next stop because he was talking nonstop. He said he was going to get his friends to come shoot me and I would be bleeding, and then he chased me around quite a bit. And then there was a fight in front of the policeman at 95th Station, 5 feet away from him. So my point is that there's quite a few people who speak violently and threaten violently and then become violent on the south side of the red line. And my comments are backed up by talking to a security guy that you all hire to walk on the trains at night with a dog. He said that to do what I'm proposing, which is for you all to put one policeman on each train of the south side of the red line. Actually, to do that safely, we would need 4 policemen with 2 dogs. And in other words, the CTA is asking, and I mean this lovingly, elderly and children to get on the train when police are afraid to get on unless they have 4 policemen and 2 dogs. The Chicago Press says, once again, not an accusation, the CTA train is where you go to commit a crime and get away with it. Our alderman, sorry to rat out my alderman, but he says the CTA is lazy about prosecuting crime that is plainly occurring on the train cameras. And this morning there was 4 people coming through the doors selling stuff, asking for money, or playing their music really loud, and it would have been easy to see with the camera, and that's a regular event. I sit by the operator to get his help for safety. Any help he gives requires that the train with hundreds of people on it will be late. Most of the time they are unable to do anything. By my experience, anyone caught telling on the perpetrators will be viciously verbally abused for the rest of the time by that person. The CTA only has 1 employee on a train with nearly 1,000 passengers on it at times. We are only asking that it be 2. 1 for security with the power to ticket and arrest, and only on the south half of the red line. I have been told that budgetary concerns prevent this, but just this morning there were more than 10 employees doing nothing when I passed them at the 95th Red Line station. Approximately the amount needed to put 1 security officer on each train. Putting 1 officer on each train will establish enough security to increase ridership, so I encourage you to do that. The money is there, it's just a matter of prioritizing safety. Thank you all so much. Did you have any questions for me?
No questions except for thank you for bringing that to our attention. Dorval, who would you like for?
I would like for him to speak with Ron Esther, who is our Chief of Safety and Security. He's the gentleman right behind you.
I talked to him last month, and he said there was budgetary concerns, so that would be you all. Is there any way you can fix this? Because it's not safe to ride on that train.
Okay, well, again, you brought it to our attention. Budgetary concerns, we'll work through that. I mean, it should not, first of all, I'm a little disappointed you got that response. Second of all, Dorval's here, and we expect to get something back from Dorval to the board about what we're doing regarding security on the trains on the south side. So again, thank you for bringing it to the board's attention. I'm sure if it doesn't change, we'll see you again. And I'm hoping, do you ride south on the red line every day?
Once a week.
Once a week. So hopefully you will start to see improvement in terms of efforts that we will take, or Dorval and his team will take, to try to address some of the concerns that you raised here this morning.
Thank you all so much. Sorry for the ugly subject matter.
No, that's what we're here for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. And that concludes our public comment section of today's board meeting, sir.
Okay. We will now take up executive session. It is my understanding that there will be executive session this morning, Karen?
Yes, Chairman, we will have executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C, subparagraphs 2, 6, and 11 of the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you, Karen. I'll now entertain a motion to recess into executive session.
Second.
Reverend Miller? Ms. Irvine? Ms. Alvarez Rosales?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Silva, yes.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson? Yes. Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
We are recessed into executive session, 7 yes votes. Thank you. I will change that. No. I will change that. Thank you. Okay, everybody, please be seated. Please remember to turn off your cell phones. We're ready when you are, Chairman.
Okay. May I have a motion to return to open meeting of the Transit Board?
So moved.
Reverend Miller. Yes. Ms. Irvine.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson. Yes. Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next agenda item is Board Item Number 6A, discussed in executive session. Karen?
6A is a recommendation by staff to approve a tentative agreement with United Steelworkers of America, Local 9777, covering 2 upholsters here at CTA for the time period January of 2017 through 12/31/19, under the same terms as negotiated with ATU for wages and health care.
All right. Let's see where I'm at here. Thanks, Karen. I now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing execution of collective bargaining agreement containing the terms of a tentative agreement with the United Steelworkers of America, Local 9777.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller. Reverend Miller. Ms. Irvine.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson. Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The collective bargaining agreement is approved with 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is Board Item Number 6B. Karen?
Board Item 6B is a recommendation of staff in real estate and the law department to pay relocation expenses associated with the acquisition of parcel 23 for the Red and Purple Modernization Project. The property is owned by 5657 North Broadway, which was the owner and operator of Northside Toyota at that location. The recommendation is that relocation expenses be paid pursuant to the Uniform Relocation Act in the amount of $2,235,044.26.
All right, thanks, Karen. I now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing payment of relocation expenses arising from the acquisition property located at 5619 to 5625 and 5657 North Broadway Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, for the Red Purple Modernization Project.
So moved.
Seconded. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Irvine.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson. Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The acquisition ordinance passes with 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is Board Item Number 6C. Karen?
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 6C is the recommendation of the Law Department to resolve the lawsuit entitled Bruce Powers versus CTA and Ivan Duncan. This involves an accident that occurred on July 20th of 2016, where a bus braked for a small animal in the roadway. Mr. Powers fell to the floor of the bus and was rendered an incomplete quadriplegic and has been institutionalized since that time. The Law Department recommends that this matter be resolved in the amount of $12.5 million.
Thanks, Karen. I now entertain a motion to approve the following settlement offer. Cook County Court Case Number 16L008093, Bruce Powers versus Chicago Transit Authority and Ivan Duncan for $12,500,000.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Irvine.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Reverend Patterson. Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson. The
Yes.
settlement offer is approved with 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning. The committee approved the February 13, 2019 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. The committee also reviewed the following ordinance: an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events for 2019. The committee also approved 7 purchase and sales award recommendations that were on the committee agenda. The committee placed the ordinance and 7 contracts on the omnibus and recommend the board approval of the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman.
Thanks, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
Reverend Miller? Ms. Irvine? Ms. Alvarez-Rosales?
Yes.
Reverend Patterson? Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
The omnibus passes with 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is the construction report. Bill?
Good morning. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Joining me today are? Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Joining me today are?
Hello, my name is Steve Hands with the CTA RPM project. I'm a senior manager there.
Juan Pablo Prieto, Senior Manager, Diversity Programs.
So the first project I'd like to provide an update on today is our East Lake, Milwaukee, and Illinois substation upgrade. Project has been shifting over the last couple months away from Milwaukee and Illinois as those phases are becoming substantially complete and towards East Lake. We've been finalizing the final testing at Illinois, and we've been moving towards the traction power area, really more so at East Lake in preparation for the installation of that equipment. Here's a couple pictures. So over the last couple months, I've been showing you a masonry wall that we were building on the interior of the building that would allow us to expand our footprint in that facility. This is the opposite, the demolition of the existing masonry wall that was our area, and it's allowing us to have that open space. Behind the kind of the visqueen is actually our traction power equipment in the existing substation. So it's keeping the dust down and protecting that equipment. And here's a finished roof product with the concrete pour of the roof. Roofs are really important in substations as water and electricity don't really like to get along well, so making sure we have a really tight envelope on these buildings is exceptionally important. So the next project I'd like to give you an update on is our 95th Terminal Improvement Project. As this project is coming towards conclusion, at the end of last month, we shifted phases as we opened up the north entrance of the north terminal and shut down the south entrance, not the entrance itself, but the entrance to the platform area at the south terminal to put in one of the key punch list items there, which is the escalator and reconfiguration of the stair at that side of the terminal. And here's a couple features of really the opening of that north entrance and north terminal. Here we are finishing off the canopy that is associated kind of in that entrance. And here's that north entrance. It's really a stunning kind of focal point of the architectural, and many of you will remember, this is a big change for the configuration of the station, where previously we did not have access to the terminal from that north side, and now, any direction you come at that station, you see an entrance and you see access to the CTA and to the city, for that matter. And here's some, one of the other items is where we've been commissioning the interlocking that's just south of the terminal there that facilitates the movement from our trains, from our yard there, ultimately to the line of the road. And the last project I'll be providing an update on today is our Belmont and Jefferson Park Stations Improvement Project. As I previously reported, most of the activity has been focused on the bus turnarounds, both at Jefferson Park and at Belmont. In this picture, you can see the new canopy installation going in at the north terminal at Jefferson Park. And in this picture, we are flying in one of the 7 pieces of the canopy structure for the Belmont canopy. And here's an example of the canopy being assembled on site. And this is a great picture. It's from up in the aerial, the canopy fully assembled at this point. Each one of those huts, as we're in the middle of winter, is a sheltered heating facility where they're doing one of the 20 welds that assembles these large, massive pieces of steel together. They heat the internal of the hut, but they also actually wrap the steel joints and superheat kind of that area. It's fracture critical welding, so it's really important to get the steel temperature to an adequate temperature before you actually make that contact weld. And last weekend we actually rolled this whole canopy in place, and it's sitting right over its final resting place in the station entrance now. It's really a stunning piece.
I'll provide a brief update about the advanced work and as part of the RPM project, the Red and Purple Modernization. In terms of our advanced contracts, we have both demolition and utility relocation work going on at this moment.
Before you go on, I don't know if we've met before. What's the name?
Of course. My name is Steve Hands. I'm the
Steve?
Senior Manager of the Red and Purple Modernization organization.
Okay.
In terms of the advanced contracts, we're currently continuing design efforts with the utility work relocation efforts, but we also have seen quite a bit of progress with our underground work. Both ComEd and AT&T now are conducting underground work. Here are a couple of photos of that work, continuing trenching with the ComEd facilities as well as AT&T trenching in the Lakeview area. Demolition work continues. We have made a lot of progress with the properties, and all of the properties are scheduled to be completely demolished by the spring. Both these efforts continue to be tight to schedule, but they do not overall impact the RPM program. Moving on to the RPM Broadway substation upgrade. This project is to enhance the capacity and reliability of this substation. Recent activities include installation and testing of the equipment within the substation. This is both the AC and DC gear, as well as the rectifiers. Here are some photos of that equipment that's been tested. And then also the lineup number 2 connections. And this is where, yes. Sorry, I apologize. This is where the power is converted from the AC current that we receive from ComEd into the DC current that's necessary to operate our trains.
So would you say, and I'm just thinking about all of the work that had to be completed prior to us getting to the real construction. So would you say we're on schedule, Dorval, to this point?
Yes.
Okay, because I know we've had ComEd, you had cable companies. I just wanted to be sure that the project is moving. Is Chris Bouchel on vacation?
Yes, Chris is on vacation today, so
right.
Steve is substituting
I just
for
want him
him.
to know that he was. I looked for him. I'm like, okay, what is he doing now? Isn't he supposed to be? But Steve, nice meeting you. Thanks for the report. Are there any questions for Steve, Juan, or for Bill? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Greg, is there any new business to come before the board?
No, sir.
With no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.